really getting into. All right, welcome back. So yeah, we really wanted to do this one. I like the idea of dreams. Like we talk about goals a lot, and a goal should be somewhat based on a dream. And I think I've talked before about Bob Proctor. He has like ABC goals. A goal is a goal as long as you work hard and you keep pushing, you'll get that goal. A B goal is, I need other people and stars to align. I need help from other people and things like that. And then the C goal is like an outlandish goal. You know what it is that you want, like with all of your heart, but you don't know how you're going to get there, and that's okay. Right? Jim Rohn says, like when the why is strong, the how is easy. But so then we get into like that third lofty C goal is really a dream. Like what's your dream? Well, my dream isn't to just, for me, like my dream wouldn't be running a 100-mile race. I've already ran one. I ran like a really difficult one. So it's like for you, oh, let me go and get my PhD. And it's like, well, you already have your doctorate, of physical therapy. Like, yes, that is a goal. It would require a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of work, but it's not a lofty goal where you don't know how it's going to. No, you know exactly how it's going to happen. You went to college for many years. Does that make sense? So it's this idea of write those dreams, and then we can get into in a minute, like the one quote, the Eye of the Tiger quote, and then talk about what we were just getting into.
I also just thinking about the Hormozy video you sent me today. I don't remember if that tied into that or not. I was gonna pull it up, but oh yeah, it's on here. I have it. I could play it. But anyways, my dad actually said something to me today that like it triggered me a little bit, but then that kind of ties into how you were just talking about, like how you have different kind of categories of goals, and like I don't even want to say what's realistic, but more of maybe what's like more of like a timeline of like when they're going to come, like A, B, and C. Like I'll probably hit this goal like within 6 months to a year. Maybe you'll hit your B goal within like 5 to 10 years, and then by like maybe like when you retire, you'll hit your C goal or something like that. He said, like be realistic is what something, because we were just talking about the car before. I drove one of my buddy's
Yeah.
cars today, and I said, oh, I want to get one of these cars, and you had made the point, I don't know if we mentioned it on the podcast or not, but about being a realist, a pessimist, or a possibilist.
Yeah,
I
I'm
feel
a
like
positive.
I think that's really good though to think about stuff in that manner, because there's really no reason why you can't do anything you set your mind to. It's just a matter of what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're willing to do on a daily basis to move towards that goal. Like we've talked about that a lot. So I think I wanted to tie into that point of what you were just saying, that like you should set goals, and we've talked about this too, and I think we've mentioned James Clear, that like are outside of your reach, because that's ultimately going to get you to like where you really want to be. Because if you set stuff that is within your boundaries, then you're never going to get outside of your boundaries. You want to grow and you want to get out of your comfort zone, so to speak. So I think that's a good point, is to set stuff that maybe you don't have a specific timeline on when you're going to reach it, but it's something that like it's on your bucket list. I think that's like a good way to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, it might be on my top 10 list of quotes. It's Michelangelo, and it says, "The great tragedy of life is not that we aim too high and we miss it, but that we aim too low and we hit the mark." And I also have to come to grips, and I talk about this in my mind and muscle class, and I have to come to grips with not everyone wants that. Like like we've talked in the past, in general, everyone wants to be better, right? But not everyone wants to be like the ultimate greatest version of themselves. And that's like, it's a struggle, because I struggle pursuing that, but it is a pursuit of mine. Like I want to achieve that higher state of being, that higher level, and there's multiple versions of us at that highest potential. But so I have to come to grips with that. But yeah, I think it's that idea of, well, for me, it's why not? Like Jim Rohn has this big thing where he's like, why not set this lofty goal? Why not now? Why not you? So it's like, why not? I think the big question would be, actually, now that I'm thinking of it, for me, a big argument would be, if someone's like, oh, should I take this job, or should I go to this school or that school? should I move here? Should I move there? And it's like, well, let's create a list of pros. Let's create a list of cons and things like that. And it's like, sit down, dig deep and figure out why shouldn't I pursue that? And there's going to be a ton of reasons why. Again, you're going to have to embrace the suck. Like it's going to suck. The higher mountain that you want to climb. Like if you want to climb Mount Everest versus, a 1,000-foot peak in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, it's like both of them you're going to get to the top of the mountain, but it's a different top. It's a different pursuit. Like the stress, the strain, the sacrifice, the pain, the challenge, the setbacks that you're going to have to go through are going to be different with the loftier, higher goal. Mountains are so easy to rationalize because it's like, well, yeah, 29,000 feet versus 5,000 feet, something like that. It's totally different. Like the air is different up there, right? The risk of death is the percentage of people that do it, the equipment that you need, all that you're going to have to go through is so much loftier and it's greater, but why not? And why not you? And then why not now?
I love that. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, we always talk about Alex Ramosi, but I think the reason his content's so relatable and Jim Rohn too, with like what you were saying is that it's just like they break it down in such a simplistic way for it to be like, okay, these are the steps, and then this is kind of what you have to do, and you just have to be patient and realize that it's going to take time. So you had sent me the video on Alex Ramosi with the singular focus and how people say like I don't remember exactly what the video said, but he was talking about like your attention and time and saying how everyone has the same amount of time, but it's not really how much time you have because people say like, oh, I don't have enough time to do this or that, but it's the amount of focused attention you have. And I realized that for myself. I said that to you. Like today is a perfect example because I feel like I had a pretty productive day today, and we're still getting this podcast in, and I'm doing things around the house and whatnot, and I was out for most of the day, but my attention was focused on the stuff that I really love, like cars, like hanging around people, socializing with other like-minded individuals that have a growth mindset, getting to talk to you, cooking like for my health and for like my goals with fitness. So I don't really feel stressed today. I feel like I've been kind of all over the place, but I was able to be very like attentive with and like direct with my time today, and I feel really good today. I had a good day. Whereas like there's other days that I'll have the same time and I'll just be doing random things that don't really make me happy, so to speak, or like aren't part of my hobbies or aren't part of my goals, and I'll feel like really busy and stressed out. So I think the point of what he was making in that video is that, and to go back to what we were saying with goals, just allocate like focused time to whatever you want to do, the one thing that you want to work on. And don't worry about, again, how much time you have in a day to get said thing done, but just focus on like sitting down and being productive on one thing at a time that you want to work on. I think that's a good point to mention.
Yeah, he's really good. He's so real too. Like, and there's no fluff. The one thing I like about him, because he's very off-putting. There's one student that I turned on to him, and they had a similar response. Like he's very off-putting initially because one, it sort of calls you out. Like he calls you out. There's no fluff, and it's like because he's ripping into a lot of stuff. He's ripping into a lot of conventional and then also fluffy things. Like his big thing was always, which I agree, is like this whole morning ritual. Well, you do this, you do that, you do this. And it's like all these latest things that these millionaires and billionaires and blah, blah, blah are doing. And it's like, he's like, by the time you get started on your working on your goal or your business or your paper or your job interview or book or whatever, it's like 3 hours, it's like 11 o'clock and you woke up at 7. So he's like, the greatest recipe for success in working towards whatever it is that you want to work towards is minimizing the amount of time it takes for you to wake up and start working on that dream. And that is so profoundly simple, but yet true, because it's like, well, that's all there is. And it's like, how can I juggle all of the rest of my life with everything that it is that I want to work on? Like I'm obsessed with quotes. So it's like I could spend 5 hours a day just researching quotes, just working on my book and like just working on content because I love reading it. I love thinking about it and things like that.
I think another good point just to intersect would be like if you're thinking of what I was just saying before, if you spend 5 hours in one day, like researching quotes for you to talk about on future episodes versus doing like even 5 minutes every single day. I think that's what Alex Ramosi is saying too, is that if you're more frequent and consistent, and again, like you were
Yeah.
saying, the focused attention versus worrying about like I need to do this every single day for 5 hours or like 3 days a week for 5 hours. It's much more digestible and like you were saying, the way that they explain their content, just simplistic and attainable and realistic for most people in their daily schedule than worrying about like 3 days a week or like on Saturday I have to do 5 hours. You every single day you
Yeah.
chip away at it, like you said. And it's kind of like that we always say the gym too. Like if you're going to the gym throughout the week versus you're just going to go to the gym twice a week to make up for, eating a certain way during the week or whatever your habits are. I think that like in the long run, it's like investing money. It's like anything else. He talks about that a lot too. But like if you can save, he made the point of you can invest like I think it comes out to like $660 a week. It's like $2,500 a month in the S&P 500. On I think it was I forget what the return was, but there was a video I was watching with him, and he was saying you'd have like $50 million in like 50 years. So it's like he was talking about how you can basically invest your money for financial freedom, and I think you can make like your first $10,000 if you have nothing. And he was saying how the a bit like being tolerant for like living in poverty, he's less tolerant for it. So he made his whole life based around the ability to make money and be financially free. So the point of what I'm saying is that he made a point about like saving. It comes out to I think it was another example he was using, but like if you can save $10 every single day over a certain period of time, and then he calculated like the return on investment, and again the S&P 500, if you just invested that money, and it came out to like a couple $1 million in 20 years, let's say. So it's the same thing. It's focused attention, or it's focused investments, or it's focused said thing, or consistently and frequently versus doing a lot randomized, I think is the point.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the word I would use for 2024, which I'll carry into, I'll probably never not use this word, is just consistency. I think that's such a powerful word because so part of it is you have to figure out what it is that you want to pursue. I was listening to a podcast by I don't remember who the host was, but Robert Greene, 48 Laws of Power, and I mean he's written countless books. But that's like his most prominent. And a big part of what he was talking about, which I hear a lot, it's this idea of what is it that you like to do. So, and that's the quote. Can I read the quote? So the quote from the song Eye of the Tiger, right, by Survivor. So many times it happens too fast. You trade your passion for glory. Don't lose your grip on the dreams of the past. You must fight just to keep them alive. And that's what I sent you. I sent you the audio response of mine to that, where the quote isn't saying you're going to have to fight to build those dreams, like to build that life that you want. You're going to have to fight to do that. We all know that. What the quote is saying is you're going to have to fight just to not lose the dream itself having a hold on your in your mind. That's so for me that's very powerful because it's Les Brown has a thing. He's like, life is advancing so fast, you have to literally run just to like keep up. Like just to stand still, you have to run. And every single day we have everything and everyone trying to like take our time, which is not our time. They're really trying to take our attention for longer periods of time away from whatever it is that brings you fulfillment.
It's a good point. Yeah, he was mentioning that too, saying how nowadays is the easiest time to be successful, but it is also the easiest time to be distracted because there's so many things that can consume our attention nowadays that aren't directed towards our goals and values in life. So I think that's a really good point. He was also saying another thing the other day to tie in about failure and how failure is almost like not a precursor, but it's something that you have to expect to do, like whenever you're pursuing anything new or trying to grow. And he made the point about how like there's a quote, the person who was like successful was the person that like tried one more time after they failed. So, and then he went in to say how you should expect to fail and you should actually want to fail sooner than later because failures teach you how to be more successful, which I thought was very, very, very profound because it's so true. It's like that Thomas Edison quote I think you always say of that, you know, when you find all the ways that don't work, you found all like a bunch of other I didn't find all the ways that don't work. What's the quote?
I didn't fail 10,000 times. I
Yeah,
found
I found all the ways
10,000
that don't
ways
work.
that don't work.
Correct. Yeah, exactly.
Which is
So
ultimately in the reason. I mean, you're from the research, like you know that world. The whole point of any research study is to reject. You're looking to seek differences, and the null hypothesis is that there is no difference. So you're looking to like reject that null hypothesis. So the idea is, yeah, the whole point is you're trying to find ways. Everything that we do, it's like that didn't work, that didn't work, that didn't work. If we had never had that, you never had that defeat. You never had. There's so many things that we won't know, and you won't know how to like come back. That's such a powerful lesson. That's something. I don't want to go off on a tangent on that, but yeah, I totally agree with that.
so back to like we were talking about with the dreams of protecting like the dream that you have in your head so you don't lose it is kind of what you're saying from this quote, which I think is again goes back to our point of how we need to write these things down and like you were saying A, B, and C goals and checking in and making sure that what you're doing on a daily basis is aligning with where you want to end up
Yeah,
in said time. I think that's the most important thing.
yeah. A big part. The writing down is really important because it's like I didn't write it to you. I was putting together the post that day, and then it was that quote that really resonated with me. That's what I started the post off with. And I didn't write it to you, my thoughts, because I think I was doing a workout and I was like, let me just record the audio. And it was like a lengthy thing. And you're like, I was like, wait, what are we talking about today? And you're like, oh, that quote. I'm like, what quote? And you're like, the blah, 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 so many times. I'm like, oh, the eye of the tiger. And then blah, blah, blah. And then you went back and you started reading me, or you were telling me what I was saying in the audio. And what did I bring up? The Musa, not the Musashi, the Musa. Oh, the idea of the dreams. So for me, a big part of all that was you're going to have to fight to keep those dreams alive because I'm sure there's many listening, and I'm sure there's tons of people that I know, and it has happened to me throughout my life where you lose those dreams, and it's like, hey, I gotta just grind. Like I got bills to pay, I got people to like take care of, I got to satisfy whatever the boss wants and all that stuff, and you get away from that dream. So the quote is talking about that. The big area where I'm now getting to is no, my dream's alive. Like I know what I want to do. It's like, how do you then get to work doing it? So, right, what's better than knowledge? Applied knowledge. Nobody cares what you know. We care what you do with what you know, right? You can read every book imaginable, but if you never implement it or put it into action, what's the point? So I like that action step. And that's where I've said, like the famous Confucius quote, right? The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So it's like you have to start, but then Miyamoto Musashi, the famous samurai, Book of the Five Rings, has another quote where he says, step by step, travel the 1,000-mile journey. So it's like, yeah, journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step, but then the Musashi quote is like, well, yeah, if you want to accomplish the entire thousand, yes, you have to start it, but step by step, take the 1,000-mile journey, right? Because I can't remember the one podcaster, the actor, but his thing was no matter what happened in life, again, you have to have those goals, you have to have those dreams. No matter what's happened to you in life, everything is your next move. Like it's the next step that's important. We want to reflect. We want to look back, right? The past is for, learning. The past isn't for living. So we want to reflect on it, but then we want to move forward. If you just stay where you are, you're not going anywhere in life, right? So the idea is, what are we doing? Like, and the word do is like, it's a verb. Not what I've done, what am I doing? So it's like getting to work on those things step by step, walk the 1,000-mile journey, right? And Confucius has another one. It doesn't matter how slow you go so long as you do not stop, which ultimately, what word does that summarize into? Consistency, which is like what you talked about, and then the Alex Hormozy reference. And I think that's so. What,
Well, that goes back to what Goggins has said that too about like you don't fail until you stop. I mean,
right.
that's the concept. That's the whole point. It doesn't matter how many times you do stop, as long as you don't finish at a stop position and keep moving, you didn't fail. Like you can stop, but don't stay stopped. Keep moving. I think that's the biggest thing too, like to take away from it, you know?
Yeah. What? Yeah. So because I don't conflate the word stop. Well, the word stop, but what does it mean to stop? Right. Jim Rohn has a good line where he says, "Make rest a necessity, not an objective."
Mm-hmm.
There was a football coach that I remember he objected. That was like a post in one of my posts. That quote, and it was like that is a reward for the players. They're going to go through this training block, and then their reward is they get the rest. And I was like, I get that, but that's giving everyone on the team. It could be the player who's doing no work whatsoever. That's still a reward for them, the rest. So it's like make that a necessity, not an objective. Should that be a valid reward, like getting to rest? Because if you do no work, there's no incentive in it. Was basically
Yeah.
my response.
That's
So,
almost like I'm thinking about people who like just go to work and come home and watch TV and don't like ever do anything that's challenging. We've talked about, I think this
and I get
last
it.
time.
I get it.
Yeah,
You have to
people are tired,
sympathize.
they're burnt out, you have to
Yes.
relax, but rest after you're done doing things that light you up and are your dreams in your head and after you've worked on those things. There's a saying too that you, you go to work to as an employee to like work on their dreams, like someone like basically you're going to work for someone else to create their dreams.
Yeah.
There's a saying that goes like that, and it's kind of
It's like yeah, the sooner you better get to work on your dreams or someone else will pay you to work on
right,
theirs.
exactly. So I think that's so true. Is it's like there's so many things to keep you at rest and to keep you distracted from, and it goes back to the point before of the focused attention. I think that's great. Consistently being focused and having attention on the things that really matter. I think that's what I would say to summarize with what you just said to help you move forward towards said things that you want to accomplish in your life.
Yeah, I sent that to you this morning, and it because most of the time I've used tons of quotes, and you think about it, and it's like, oh, what's the most valuable asset? And it's like it's time. But then at the same time, well, we all have 24 hours in our day. Why? I mean, it's this idea of what are you doing with the time? So yes, the time is a valuable, but it's it's the use of that time, kind of like the knowledge and applied knowledge. So it was such a fast. I mean, he has so many good, but that one really struck me.
But that's the other point too of like even when you study, if it's not focused and effective, you could sit at your notes, your computer, or your book for hours on end. If you're not, you could spend 30 minutes there and it's focused and you're learning and you're the stuff's going into short term and then long term memory. Or you could stay there for 3 hours and be sidetracked and be sleepy and not focused and you it needs to be focused time and attention on what you're doing. You know what I mean? So I think like you said, it really goes down to the fact of how long you can stay focused on whatever you're doing and then break away from it as needed. Because it's better to go back to it and be focused on it for a shorter period of time, but more consistently for for over days to weeks to months to years than to just do it intermittently.
Yeah,
You'll make more progress.
yeah, and for me, I think everything's boiled because I'm scatterbrained. I mean, I'm an ADHD individual, so like we say planning, but like the actual scheduling, and it's something that I'm starting to do. I need to do it religiously,
Hmm.
where it's hey, like oh, I didn't work on my book today, right? I didn't like transcribe and like work on a certain day worth of quotes and writing about it. It's like, well, why not? Oh, well, blah, blah, blah got in the way. Or, I mean, a lot of it was just time. Like I'm just putzing around doing this, doing that. It's like, oh, if I just said 30 minutes, hey, here's a 30-minute time block from 11 to 11:30 a.m. I got nothing else. I have to do this. It's blocked. Like I would get 30 minutes of that done every day. And I started like working on it. And it's, oh, if it takes me, like you can just then time it. Part of it is, hey, in 30 minutes, like how many pages did I get done in this quote book? It's like, oh, I got, let's say I got 10, like 2 pages done. Okay, well, that's 2 pages in third. Like you can slowly build out, oh, how long will it take me if this is a 200-page book? Things like that. But until you do those things, it's just all up in the air. And it's like, well, let me work on it. Let me work on it. It's kind of like the idea, like I'm generally not an individual who writes down my workouts. And it's crazy because I teach exercise testing and prescription. I teach, personal training. Like I teach all that stuff, and I've worked as that individual. I work on it, but it is wild how well plans work, or at least having the plan, right? You have the goal, you have the dream. Here are the steps that I'm going to do. Schedule it. Align the stars, your environment, right? Social environment, physical environment. Get your mindset right. Watch what you're letting in and stuff like that. Buy the right equipment, buy the right food, like buy the tools, buy the training videos, buy the study material, whatever it is. Set all that stuff up. You can have everything in the world, but if you don't implement it, like what's the point? And for me, it's boiling down to like scheduling. I have to schedule it.
Yeah, I think that's important. I've been trying to do that more with Google Calendar is a good example, and just trying to stick to one thing and do it in an order of what I commit to. And I have certain flexibility. Like you and I are pretty flexible with our time schedule with this because we do stuff on the weekend. You have a family. I was out today doing stuff with friends, but uh, I think putting it on the calendar or writing it down somewhere where you can see it, like on a whiteboard or whatnot, and then just holding yourself accountable to it. If something else comes in, you say, hey, I have a commitment here. I can't do that right now. It's not that I don't want to, but I just don't have the time for it right now. And just hold yourself accountable to what you write down and what you want to do. And stack your days and your weeks to revolve around the things that you're trying to move towards, in which the individual you want to be and also the goals that you set for yourself, I think is the best way to think about it.
Yeah, because it's what are you working on? There's like I remember Goggins had this one thing, but someone was asking me like, there's a lot of random people when I go and there's running groups that I'm associated with, and they know I ran the 100 miler and they know I've done like other races and other feats and stuff like that. It's like the question, hey, are you training for anything right now? Like, what are you training for? And it's like, oh, I'm just training for life, man. Right? Like, I think it was Will Smith. This random line that he said one. It was like, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, it's like, that's really true.
Not wrong.
Yeah, it's not wrong. If you just stay in shape, it's not hard to get in like better shape. But if you're randomly in shape and then you get out of shape completely, right? That cycle it's harder and harder as you get older. So,
I
but
almost think it's like when you think about it, when you explain it that way, it's almost harder to do that because then it's like you have to go back through the whole process again, then make it a habit, make it work in your schedule. It's the same thing as like suffering now for a comfortable life versus having a comfortable life but suffering for your whole life because you always have to make means to an end with what you're doing. It's kind of the same
it's like
concept.
in the nutrition world, that's yo-yo dieting, which there's many reasons why that's worse for you, especially like in the diet world, right? Yo-yo dieting, it's like, oh, I'm going to lose all this weight and then, right, I'm going to lose fat, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to lose that much muscle, right? On average, if you exercise and properly diet, for every 10 pounds that you lose, approximately 8 pounds will be fat, 2 pounds will be muscle or lean tissue. So, but the idea would then be, let's say you lose 20 pounds. Okay, you lost 4 pounds of muscle, but then you lost 16 pounds of fat. If you gain 20 pounds, you're not gaining any muscle back. You're only gaining fat. So it's like that yo-yo cycle slowly has you losing lean mass over time, even though if it's a year from now, you went up and down and you could still have lost. Oh, yeah, I'm still now lost to 50 pounds. And it's like, yeah, but you don't have as much muscle mass as you would have if you just, even on a slower trajectory, lost that weight consistently to get you to that 50-pound loss or whatever it might be. So yeah, that's the yo-yo diet, which is very not recommended, but nobody's choosing it. It's just what comes about.
Yeah. I think all the things to do are simple, but like we always say, simple doesn't imply it's easy. And I think that to get started is the hardest thing for anybody. I mean, for us to start the podcast, and now I don't know what episode this is, but like it was tough to do it, and we thought about what do we want to talk about and this and that, and we went back and forth, and it's like, but then we did it, and then we did number two, and then number three, and then we had guests on, and now you and I are talking on a regular occurrence, like weekly, and we don't really, we pick a topic, and then we hit record, and we talk, and we produce content, and I think that's the same thing. Is it's like it doesn't really matter where you start as long as you're starting with something that means of importance to you in your life, whether it's your health, your wealth, traveling, social experiences, like whatever it is that you want to do, just start somewhere and then be consistent with whatever it is that you're doing and then add another thing in and then add another thing in, like you always say, right? And then we're creatures of habits. You're going to eventually snowball into doing what you want to do for like the whole identity based habits. Like if I want to be like Pat, what does Pat do? Okay, write all the things down Pat does. All right, then I add in a couple things that Pat does. I do them on a weekly basis. Then I add a few more things in. Then I add a few more things in. And in 5 years, I'm walking in someone's steps like you, where you're fit and you're educated and you have a family and you're financially free. So it's layering it, but I think it's just starting somewhere is the biggest thing. And that's for me too, like with this. I've wanted to have guests on and stuff and interview business owners and whatnot, but like you and I are just producing content right now in between to talk and to riff back and forth and to incorporate our own lives. And eventually we'll have more people on, but maybe you and I will just talk. Maybe that's where this will go. Who knows? But we've started, we're doing it, and we're excited for what's to come. And I think that's the most important thing is just start with something. In 2025, it's a new year, clean slate, pick something to focus on, be consistent with it, and then add another thing in.
Yeah, what's the Earl Nightingale quote that sums that up so beautifully? It's somewhere along the lines of don't stress or don't worry about the time it's going to take, right, to accomplish whatever dream or goal you are seeking to accomplish. Why? Well, because the time's going to pass anyway. So you might as well spend it on things that are worthwhile. It makes me think of this. I think it's Bruce Lee, and he said, the knowledgeable know what they want, but the wise know what they don't want. Right? It's like, oh, I want that. I want that. I want that. But to really know what you don't want, you have to have experienced things. Right? Like you didn't test drive as your buddies, but you drove this Porsche today. Right? So you've driven a lot of nice cars, but if you've never driven a Porsche before, you could say, I want a Porsche. But the only way to know you don't want a Porsche is you have to drive a Porsche. Like the way of knowing, I don't like the way that feels. I don't like the way the clutch is. I don't like the way it hand. You can't know that unless you get behind the wheel. So it's like, that's wisdom. What's wisdom? Wisdom is, for the most part, wisdom is experience, which is action, which is applied knowledge, but it's not just that. It's someone who's truly wise is not just someone who's gone through the experience, but someone who's reflected on it. Right? Socrates says the unexamined life is not worth living. So it's like, you have to reflect on things, which for me, that's, I think the big thing that one of the things that I really struggle with is reflecting. Like you and I have talked about it. It's like, hey, let's watch our podcasts. Like, let me watch the podcast. So I know I say the word like too many times, right? We say, well, we both say the word like a lot. So it's the only way is to look back and reflect. I have my students in health and wellness. I'm actually teaching the class right now. They have to do these journal activities. And one of the activities they can choose is to go through all of their phone pictures, and they have to sort them, put them in folders, delete them if they're no good. The reflections after that activity are like mind blowing, especially the ones that have like 10,000, 20,000, 30, 40,000 photos. And like, I never went through those. They went through ups and downs. Some of the photos were painful. They were joyous, but they feel this weight. Almost all of them feel this huge weight lifted off their shoulders. And it's like, oh, I'm going to put this into my regular repertoire and stuff like that. Right. But the only way of, again, no understanding thing is we have to act. You have to do things. but then you have to reflect on it.
I love that. I think that's a great summary because you can add that into so many different.
Mhm.
Like I always go back to fitness, but like I mean, I was never in good shape when I was a kid, and I wanted so badly to be like fit and have muscles and this and that. So I feel like I can appreciate like now being in pretty good shape because I kind of went through both identities. Like, didn't really care about my diet, was pretty sedentary, into video games, wasn't really into sports when I was younger, and then kind of flipped the switch and went the other way now, being an adult. But I think that's so true. Is it's like even with I always know like friends that travel all over the place, and then they I always joke around with them like, why do you want to live in New York? And they're like, well, I love the seasons and I love the area and the city and this and that. And it's like the more you can experience, the more you really can figure out what's meaningful for you in your life. And then I also think that helps because then you can pick the one thing that does all of the things for you and really makes you content. And you don't have to worry about wanting all of the other things, like you were saying. Like you can open your phone and be like, wow, I want this car, I want that car, I want, or I want to live here or there, or I want to do this or that because there's so much and it's so accessible now. But I think we're more simple than complicated as humans, and technology makes us more complicated because we think we want more than we need. And we talked about this like 2 episodes ago of like, what do we really like? When's enough enough?
Yeah.
And I think that's a good point. Is that like in 2025, why is this not the year to figure out what like you really want in your life? Like, where do you want to live? Like you were saying, we were students. What car do you want to drive? What do you want to do as a career? Do you really want to be a physical therapist, or do you want to do the things a physical therapist does? That was another great point that you said. You could be a personal trainer, or strength and conditioning coach, or athletic trainer, and do like a
Yeah.
lot of the same stuff. You don't have to go through 7 years of school. Like, so I think that's an awesome point. You need to experience things in life, and how do you experience things in life? You have to go out and do something.
Mhm.
So pick something to start with.
Yeah, I love Gary V, and we can wrap it up after this. Gary V has he's like Alex Hormozy and Gary V have become two of my favorite. I don't know what you call them, but for me, they're role models. Like my role models that I absorb online through their books, through social media. There's no fluff, and they're both very raw, but they're both very insightful. Gary V, I remember he was doing one where this one guy came up and he was on stage and he was asking about, I don't know what I want to do. And Gary said, what is it that you're interested in? He said, I think I want to be an architect. He's like, so then go be a freaking architect. Like, because I think he studied architecture, whatever it is. But so he's like, well, how do I do that? And he's like, where do you live? Do a 30-mile radius, look up all the architecture firms. What are the top 20, or what look up their profile, which ones resonate with you, and then send them an email. This is what I tell my internship students, like send them an email, call them, and then show up and say, I want to work for you. I want an internship, things like that. He's like, so do that for 6 months, do it for a year, blah, 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 if you get a job. And then the kid was like, well, what if I don't like it? And Gary's like, well, fucking quit, dude. Like, what do you want me to tell you? I just love the way he approaches it. Jesse Itzler is very like that. So he's like, what do you then go do something else? Like, it's your life, especially if you're on, as someone who's 40, gosh, I think I just turned 43. As someone who's 43, if you're under the age of 30, it's like, especially if you're even like under 25, go out and attempt whatever it is. Like, there is so much life ahead of you. I mean, I have a family, and I've been doing my job. I've been a full-time professor, 12 years. Uh, I'm like barely now getting into, oh my gosh. So like to really gravitate towards understanding how much potential like resides within me. And everyone's going to be different, but I love that aspect where he's like, just right. Yogi Berra, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. Cicero said, the indecision is the thief of opportunity. So Gary V's big thing is like, just go down that path. Like, do you want to go to school for this? Do you want to go to school for this? Do you want to go to this school? Do you want to go to that school? Do you want to take, hey, I have 2 job offers. He's like, just pick one. And don't worry about the other one because it's impossible for you to know what it would have been like. Right? There's tons of that. There's tons of movies that are like that. I can't remember the famous one, but Nicolas Cage had one. Family Man, I think. He was like this big. He was like a family man, and then he dreamt of His life was stressful. He dreamt of being this big, successful businessman. So he like woke up one day and he was living in a penthouse in Manhattan or something like that. Nothing but like high end suits, drove like crazy sports cars, made a ridiculous amount of money, but he was very, and then he like got a glimpse of his wife, but from a different life, and he wanted it. And it was like, no, you can't have that. So it's just this, it's such a fascinating concept that you won't understand what it would have been like because it could have been bad. You could have gone to the other school. You could have taken the other job, right? You could have chosen the other route and it could have been even more disastrous. You will never know. It's like the Mighty Ducks thing we were talking about, right? You hit the puck and it hits the post and it either goes in or it doesn't go in. You'd never know. Right? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, like the Wayne Gretzky shots. So that I think that's my big one. Like,
But the more shots you take, therefore, the wider the
law of
goalpost
numbers
becomes.
Right. Well, that's how you learn. But
Exactly.
for me, I would end it on this idea. Hunter Thompson, he has a fantastic line where he says, "Buy the ticket, take the ride." You won't know what you won't. Two things: you won't know what it's like to ride a roller coaster. This is the figurative for all of life, unless you ride an actual roller coaster. And the aspect would be to be an expert at understanding roller coasters. You have to ride one roller coaster many times, ride multiple roller coasters, right? So the idea is that's where you get into consistency, attempt, practice, repetition, repetition, repetition.
Yeah, analysis by what is it? Paralysis by analysis.
Yeah.
Is like kind of what you were just saying. I've been hearing that a lot. Yeah, I
And then
think you need to do stuff and you need to figure out what stuff you like to do and then you need to go back and do it more and fail and learn and figure out what direction you want to take and whatever thing you're doing. There's so many ways you can go, even being in architecture. My dad was an architect and he's in construction. So it's like, yeah, I mean, you can end up anywhere. I mean, who knew that you and I were going to be in a podcast together when I was your student? You know, it's like, that's the beauty of life is like anything is possible. It's just a matter of what you believe is possible. And then you also need to surround yourself with people that are telling you what you're doing is possible. Because if you're around people that haven't done what you're trying to do, they don't understand, they can't even fathom or even understand what you're trying to do because they never did it. I think for me at 29 years old, changing my friend circle and the people that I hang out with, like even today, and being like, all these guys are like older than me, they have more money than me, they have businesses, they have families. Like those are the people I want to be around. Those are the things that are, for me at least, important in life. Like I want to have a family eventually. I want to be financially free. I want to be able to go and do things that I want to do in my life. I want to have good relationships with people like you, Pat. Like I think if I had to say one thing to end on this episode, it would be take a look at, and we've talked about this before, but like the 5 people that you hang out with. And if those 5 people aren't helping you get to where you want to be, if they're family, if they're whatever they are, close friends, evaluate how much they need to be in your life. Hopefully they're just friends. Hopefully they're not family. And, you know, even if they are, maybe just evaluate how much time you have to spend around those people. And again, that goes back into the time, right? Like you can spend time with family, that's fine. But don't spend time with family and take everything that they say to heart and then like live by the way that they want you to live. Live your life how you want to live it and surround yourself with people that are living in the way that you want to. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah. It's the sign of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without immediately adopting it. So that's where you get into like, you know, we have 2 ears and one mouth. Like I'm a talker, man. I'm trying to listen more, to sit back and listen. But I love that idea of the people that you're surrounded by. One thing that I've constantly heard and I can attest to, it's something I'm now in this endeavor in my life. Like, I love speaking. I love quotes. I love personal development, success, you know, like growth mindset. Like this is what I want to do. I mean, these are the classes I'm basically only teaching. I only want to teach these classes. I don't want to teach about nutrition anymore. I really don't want to teach that much about exercise. I just want it because it's important. But none of that means anything if you don't have like the mindset to actually do it. So like when I work with athletes, when I work with clients, when I work with that's all I want to do. So on that note, it's not just the people that you're surrounded by, but also a mentor. Like that's the one thing I think I'm lacking right now If you're the smartest person in the room all the time, you're in the wrong room. Like you need to go out and like I want to go and find people in this space that I can actually communicate with that are so much more knowledgeable and experienced than I am, because that's the only way you're going to learn, by being challenged, right? I played tennis in high school. My one buddy was so good. If I didn't play with him and I only played with like random other people, I would have never gotten better. I was never a great tennis player, but he made me better because he was better than me. So shout out to my buddy Bry. He pushed me in many ways growing up, but I think that's a big thing. You have to have those dreams. We're always going to come back to, right? The idea of our podcast, valued pursuit, right? There's value in pursuing a better you. Identify which version, because there's tons. You get into all these movies and you get into physics and like all this. There are an almost infinite number of better versions of you out there. Pick one. So that's your dream. That's your goal. That's that C goal. And then you have to find other people, right? Success leaves clues. Look for people who've done it. You don't have to follow exactly in their footsteps, but if you have no idea what to do, then look at where their footsteps were. Like what gear did they have, right? If you want to do podcasts and stuff like that, like we're always getting into all that stuff, but Gary Vee really knocked it in my head and he was like, hey, your podcast is going to be for most of your life and most people, nobody cares about your podcast. It's like, instead of trying to create something, just document. Like, let's just have the conversation. So like my camera died out early, but hey, I have a decent camera. You can still hear me because the mic dropped. The value of the content hopefully is the same. So find that mentor, have the dream, get to work on it, prioritize what your attention is. I think that was a big theme from the beginning, right? Yes, time is super valuable, but even more than your time is what you're doing with your time. That's ultimately focus/attention. So
I love that. Yeah. Just remember everyone that whoever you're looking up to and you associate those people with being ahead of you in whatever way have failed a lot more times than you have in whatever you're trying to do. So just let that kind of encourage you and lead you with confidence to know that you can do it. And Pat and I are both in different points in our life and we're both still figuring it out every single day. I talk to my business owner friends and they say the same thing. They say, it may look like I know what I'm doing, but I'm still just trying to figure it out. I'm still just trying to see what works, what doesn't work. So I really like that. I think a lot of this helps me too, honestly. I mean, like you're a mentor to me. I know you're trying to find mentors, but I'm trying to get more involved with that as well, with goal setting and with being around people that just talk like this and just live like this, because it ultimately will allow you to live a more fulfilled life by being able to do more things that you didn't think you could do. Sure. You may not think you want to do whatever it is, be in shape, travel more. I'm just using the same examples, have more money. But until you do it, like Pat said, you're not going to really know if you want to do it or not. So,
yep.
Keep your mind open in 2025.
Yes, sir. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure, dude.
Always a pleasure. Love it.
All right, everyone. Get to work, find your dreams, get after them, and let us know. What do you struggle with the most? What do you wish you had more of? What you wish you knew more, and things like that. I mean, it's 2025. The world of knowledge and of what to do, how to do, like it's there. That's where, again, you have to go back to your why. Like, why is it that you are doing why is it that you want to do what you want to do? That's the only thing that's going to really keep you on track.
I think it would be cool to have some of our listeners also, if they comment or if they DM us or in whatever platform it may be, comment the top 3 goals that they may have in 2025 and share them. We can share ours too, maybe on the next episode.
Absolutely. All right, man. Until next time.
Until next time, guys. Stay tuned.
Be well.
Take care, Pat.
Bye. Thank you for being here and taking a step towards growth. As the saying goes, change is inevitable, but growth is optional. We look forward to sharing more expertise and content with you, and we want to hear from you about what topics you're interested in learning more about. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this experience, please like, subscribe, and share with others who could benefit.
Our goal is to grow the show and bring on more valuable guests to provide relevant content for your life. Thank you for joining us on this mission to spread knowledge and connect with people around the world. The Valued Pursuit podcast and content posted by Valued Pursuit is presented solely for general informational, educational, and entertainment purposes. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from this podcast or website are at the user's own risk. It is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, medical, psychotherapist, or any other qualified professional, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical or mental health condition they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such condition. You ever have a vision? Something you see play out before it happens? They say that the scariest thing in life is not growing into your potential, not recognizing the person you were created to be. We are on a mission to help everyone on this planet chase that version of you, your most fulfilled self. Created here in the USA, Reinvent Co. is now releasing their one-off hoodie in a full zip design, premium quality fitted to your physique to show you are chasing greatness in all aspects of life. Wear a garment that shows your potential evolving over a lifetime and become a part of a brand where humans connect to knock down the obstacles they face for endless refinement and continuous improvement.